Okay, so we're recording, and let me welcome along Rashid Kotwal, who I've known for a couple of years now, and we've done a bit of work here and there together. How are you doing, mate?
Excellent. Thank you, James.
Good. This is a bit of an impromptu conversation, folks, for those of you that tune into it. And it's born off a couple of things. Rashid's running a workshop in a few days' time, which I'll happily, get him to talk about and promote, which I think would be really, really beneficial for, almost anybody really, in small business in Australia today, in any business in Australia today. And it's also, this has come out because of some conversations that he and I have been having recently about how the economy has changed and evolved, to the point that there probably needs to be a slight change of focus, or at least an increased focus on a particular aspect of sales, and that's around, retaining clients. Before we do all that, though, you haven't come into sales from the traditional kind of sales career trajectory, have you?
No, I haven't.
Tell
All
us a
right.
bit about your background.
All right. So part of history, I started as a mechanical engineer way back in the late 70s, early 80s, and sort of found I had a real propensity for IT, with the old Texas calculator back in those days, and had a real flair for it. And so basically spent 20 years with major IT vendors, all mainly American ones, NCR, DEC, Concurrent, DMR Group, people like that,
Mhm.
and moved from technical roles into management roles and then sales roles, interestingly enough. And had to really marry the fact that I come from a technical background and how do you actually deal with people, because most of us engineers are not that crash hot uh, typically in dealing with people.
Yeah.
And then did a whole bunch of study. I studied NLP, and I'm an NLP trainer, neuro linguistic programming, and just found I had a flair for that sort of area, and 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 then moved into sales management. And then when we've been running a practice for the last 23 years, focusing on helping business leaders grow their businesses to get to the point where the business should be able to run without them, because most people hit a sort of entrepreneurial ceiling, where everything sort of is chaotic, etc. And moving them from that to a place where, things actually work without you having to do them constantly. But one of the things that I've noticed over the years that we've been running our practice is a couple of things. Number one, people hire the wrong people as sales. They hire people who simply do not work out. And it's not necessarily the fault of the people that they're hiring. It's the fault of the people doing the hiring, because they don't understand
Yep.
what it takes and the type of person that they need to hire. And then they get really bent out of shape when 2 years down the track, no one has sold it. And so that's one of the reasons that you and I talk, because I know that you have a lot of systems helping people get the right people into roles,
Yep.
which is more than half the battle, frankly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other half of the battle, of course, is training them and making sure that they stay and all the other things that go on. But one of the things that we've noticed more and more is that a lack of customer. I wouldn't call it customer service. Well, I could call it customer service, because I've had a couple of examples lately of absolutely shocking customer service. Uh, and but it's more knowing what your customers actually value from you. We make assumptions as to what people want.
Yeah.
We say this is our expertise, this is what you should want, this is who you are, blah blah blah. But very often there's a gap, and it might not be a very big gap, but there's a gap between what you think they should value and what they actually value. And the only way of actually finding this out is actually interesting enough to ask them. Yeah, say, okay, so what do we really do well? What could we be doing better? Are there things that we could be providing you that we're not providing you that we could provide you? I'm not saying go off on some wild goose chase because one person wants it, but what are those things that really make your customer feel valued because you're actually asking them for their opinion? And believe it or not, very few people actually ask their customers how they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that gives you a tremendous amount of knowledge, if you like, about what is really going on and where you need to focus. And sometimes it's only a few degrees off, but those few degrees off over time make a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, by the sounds of things, then, what you're primarily focused on is bringing systems, process, methodology to this dark art called sales. Is that fair?
Yeah, sales is a mixture of art and science.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. Okay, there is a lot of art when it comes to dealing with people, but there's also a lot of science, which is psychology, understanding how to ask the right questions, understanding how to delve into issues, understanding what people's aspirations are. All of those things are science, but the way you deliver it is art.
Yeah. Yeah. Along with that, though, I think a lot of people are of the misconception, and particularly those outside of sales, that sales is some kind of wing it exercise, some make it up as you're going along, tap dance kind of thing. Whereas I would suggest that sales is far from that, that it is almost a paint by numbers, almost a follow the bouncing ball. Yes, there needs to be some level of creative thinking and probably even creative speaking because of the situation that will differ from one client to the next. But the journey from opening an opportunity to then securing a new piece of business is pretty much sequential, yeah?
Yeah, it is pretty much sequential. If you think about, I heard a talk years ago about from somebody who teaches creative writing, and he says you've actually got to have a structure. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's a crime novel, for instance, you have a protagonist, you have a victim, you have this, that, and the other, and there's a structure that you follow, and it's no different in sales. If you just go in there and wing it, you're opening yourself up to basically not getting very far. You're going to have very unsatisfied potential clients because there's no structure to anything that you do.
Yeah.
And another way that somebody put it years ago, which I really liked, he said, think of it as locks going up a river. Okay. So each lock, you have to shut the lock gates behind you, level up the water, then get to the next one, shut the gate behind you. So what you want to do is you've got all these locks and doorways that people move through, and you want to stop them going backwards as much as possible.
Yeah,
because
good.
this is where stuff falls the cracks. You haven't done the right thing. You haven't talked to the right people. You don't actually know what's going on in the business. And therefore you get blindsided. And I've had a case a little while ago. He was an ex-client, and I rang him up and I said, "Oh, how are you going?" And he said, "Oh, we were working with this company for a whole year. We were about to sign this multi-million-dollar deal. And the last person we spoke to was the CEO, and the CEO said, 'Oh, by the way, have you spoken to HR?' They hadn't spoken to HR over a whole year for a people type project. Okay. HR said, 'We've been working on our own thing for the last year, so bugger off.'
Yeah, right.
Okay. Now, if they closed the doors by just talking to people along the way, talking to the right people, finding out, this would never have happened.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's kind of talk about the subject at hand and the thing that kind of sparked you and I doing this, and that is that by all accounts, the Australian economy is kind of teetering on a brink of some sort, right? And whether the Australian miracle economy survives yet again or not, you and I are not economists, so who knows? But it would appear that we're probably closer to a recession than we've been in quite some time. And we're all starting to see the ripple effect of that. Both you and I and the salespeople that we talk to and the clients that we talk to are all telling us that the sales journey is elongating. There are more people being involved in the decision-making process. Risk aversion is high. Budgets are clamping down. And so this opportunity for landing new business with an organization you've never done business with before is becoming increasingly tougher. And whilst we could speak to then what does that mean for the salesperson to try and land that, the thing that you and I got chatting about, of course, the other day was, yeah, but what about the people that we've already got as clients and how are we managing that relationship, et cetera, et cetera. So, we're obviously talking about account management, customer success, et cetera, et cetera. Talk us through perhaps, your philosophy, your viewpoint on all of that. What's your experience around account management and how well it is or it isn't done here in Australia?
Look, the big boys do it pretty well. There's no doubt about that. Small organizations do it very badly, in my opinion. I believe the overarching philosophy or an overarching philosophy should be delivery is your best sales strategy. That means the better you deliver, the more likely it is that you can open up more avenues in an account. because you're talking to people, and you're talking to people about what they're doing, how they're going. And the other thing I would say is that your delivery people should be empowered to look for opportunities. And I'm not saying they need to go and sell those opportunities, but they need to be looking for opportunities, talking to the people they're delivering for, saying, oh, okay, what else is happening in this business? And then going back to the business that they work for and saying, hey, talk to so-and-so, because I reckon there's something there we can do. And I think that is a very neglected part of business, because very often delivery people go, well, I'm just delivering. This is what I do. Don't expect me to think about anything else. But I think that's a very short-sighted, blinkered view. And if there's one thing that I could try and encourage all our clients to do, is to have their delivery people open up their eyes and say, look, I don't want you to become salespeople. That's not what this is about. All I'm asking you is to keep your eyes open. If you see something is wrong somewhere, say something. And it's that old thing about the terrorism. If you see a package lying on the road or whatever, say something. It's no different.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, right? A number of years ago, I was the director of people and culture for a US owned business, but down here in Australia and New Zealand. And the business had become very, very kind of product led, and it was all about the product. And the CEO wanted us to kind of change the focus on that and have it become what he would describe as a sales-led culture. And we can have arguments about, that and the buyer's journey versus the seller's journey, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the premises that we came down to, and we kind of instilled this in absolutely everybody, including the folks in accounts and the folks in IT. If you're not serving a customer, you better be serving somebody who is. Right. And I think in a lot of organizations that just gets completely, forgotten, if ever even thought about. If you're not serving a customer, you better be serving somebody who is. Yeah. And this notion of the existing customer is so much easier to retain than the new customer is to gain.
Well, it takes, look, depending on what statistic you listen to, it takes 7 to 8 times more effort to get a new customer than to keep one. Yep. And honestly, the profitability is not a lifetime value of a customer. So I actually have a spreadsheet somewhere on my website where you actually plug in the numbers and even include referrals and say, okay, how many percentage of referrals become clients, et cetera, et cetera. But if you plug this in, it is actually staggering how much more money you could make if you actually looked at the whole average lifetime of a customer over the years.
Yeah.
So, but most people think in transaction terms. They think, oh, okay, there's one transaction that I'm going to do, and then that's it. They're going to go away and they're never going to come back. But in a service-based business, it should be, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a service-based business. It should be any business where you're looking for that repeat business. You're looking for the cross-sell, the upsell, but really the back end over the years sale that somebody comes back. And how do you keep somebody loyal enough and build up enough trust that they want to keep coming back for you? And that's from delivering exceptional service.
Yep. Yeah. Alongside of that, I'm going to suggest that, and I agree, delivering exceptional service is always likely to result in people wanting to do more business with you. It still leaves itself, though, to some degree to each individual who's in the delivery side of the business being a little bit more proactive, right? And so I'm thinking here of a client that we worked with many, many years ago, SMC Pneumatics, based out at Castle Hill in Sydney, Japanese-owned business. And they had a question of the quarter that they would give to all of the delivery and the engineering folk. Right, just this one question. Every time you're in a client location and you're speaking to the person who's likely to know, we just want you to ask this one question and then come back to us with the answer. You don't need to do anything with it. Just come back to us with the answer. And so that was a way of them, building intelligence on what was going on. So for instance, one of the questions very simply was, what other projects have you got in the pipeline in the next quarter ahead? Ta-da! Simple little question, right? It's not trying to sell anything. It's a question of inquiry and curiosity. But the thing that I liked about that was that it was about being proactive and not just saying to the delivery people, eyes up, ears open. No, go and ask a specific question and we'll change that question every quarter. Have you got any other examples like that?
I think that's a great example. Absolutely. Just say, and even just asking, what is something that we could improve?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's one thing that we do that, or you could even say one thing that niggles that we could improve?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's always going to be something.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. You mentioned a few minutes ago that the bigger players are always pretty good at doing this stuff, and that's because they've spent money on Miller Hyman training and key account management and target account selling and all that kind of thing. Of that science, if we want to call it that, of that practical kind of planning stuff, what are some things that small business owners could consider applying to their clients, the people they've already got on the books that they're doing business with? What do you think are some of the kind of Miller Hyman type of things that would be useful for them to be contemplating using?
Okay. All right. So depending on the size of the business that you're targeting, and let's just say you're targeting a sort of mid-sized business, where this would make sense, where there are multiple stakeholders involved in the decision. One of the keys is to know who all the players are and what their personal agendas could be, not just the business agenda. So, we're all taught that you need to create a business case for whatever it is that you want to sell. And the business case is really important for the person at the top or the senior leadership team where they're looking to make more money or save time or something along those lines. But it's equally important to understand what are the personal agendas of the people who would have to implement this thing or even use it. Because I've seen lots of instances where certainly a SaaS product I know of, where it would save the organization significant amount of time doing a certain thing, but after 2 or 3 months, it would get thrown out because the users wouldn't actually use it because they were so used to over the last 20 years doing it the way they did it, they just did not want to change. And that's at the small end of town. I was seeing the same sort of thing at the big end of town, where hundreds of, sometimes millions of dollars are wasted because it's never been adopted. Okay, so one of the keys with small business also, if you're dealing with a small business, understand that it's their money, it's the owner's money, and that is hugely different to a corporation where it is not their money.
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you really have to look at why would somebody be spending this? What is it going to do for them personally, as well as for the business, because it's coming out of their own pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Good. One of the things that we used to teach clients certainly in the account management space was something we used to call brick walling. Right. And the idea was build a brick wall, almost like a castle, if you like, around your clients over which your competition could not readily, easily climb. Right. And so it was a combination of adding value, deepening those relationships and understanding, and not only from the salesperson to the organization, meeting 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 of them, but also bringing some of our people in, whether it's the CEO or whether it's one of the techs or one of the engineers or even the accounts person, but, creating those human to human relationships so that when that person leaves, you've still got that kind of tight bond. Yeah. I think, though, one of the things that you've just touched on, which is really, really important, and you're right, over the many years I've been on the planet, I've seen so many major purchase that require some kind of behavioral change fail because they forgot about the behavioral change piece, right? And so I guess that kind of brings us then to the notion of customer success versus customer service. What's your view on what the two of those are from a difference point of view?
Okay, so all right, so it's a given. The way I would put it is, it's a given that we have to provide service. Yeah, but what are we doing that actually helps the customer become more successful? What is the bottom line for them? What are they looking for, both from a business point of view as well as a personal point of view? Are they going to be saving money, making money, saving time, getting more status recognition, and maybe recognition for the organization as well? It might be winning an award or something like that gives them recognition. But also, what's the personal risk and reward for the particular people that are making the decision? And so all of these factors come into satisfaction. Well, how satisfied, if I was to ask, and I don't particularly like, say, just a simple net promoter score, because I don't think that gives you enough basis to make decisions.
Yeah.
It's ultimately it's a number, and yes, you can say, why didn't you give them that score? But really, it's deeper than that. What emotionally drives satisfaction? Because that satisfaction is emotion, ultimately.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are the emotional drivers from what you're doing with your service and the experience that you provide? What are those emotional drivers, and what are the recipients getting from this at all the different levels of the business? Because ultimately, you need to be, if the business has got, you've got the leadership team, whoever that is, or a leader or owner or whatever. You've got the technical people. If it's a technical solution, you've got the people using it, and every one of those people has to have a level of satisfaction. Otherwise, one of them being out is going to kibosh this thing.
Yep.
And that's an ongoing process. And what's interesting is part of what we do when we work with our long-term clients, and we also use it as a standalone service, is we actually interview end clients on behalf of the people we're working with. And it's a pretty rigorous interview. Sometimes it could be half an hour, sometimes it can actually go for an hour, depending on the level of the person we're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting is that something might have happened even 5 years ago, even 10 years ago for long-term clients, and they will always, without fail, bring it up. Always. Then they'll say, oh, it was fixed. But it's really interesting how long people's memories are.
Yeah.
Okay. And then at the end, without fail, they will say thank you for the interview. Thank you. And they will say thank their vendor, for taking the trouble to have a third party call them and have an intelligent conversation with them, because then they feel valued. They feel that the person doing supplying the service or the product actually values their opinions. And in a couple of cases recently, we actually, found a couple of opportunities for an organization to significantly, I mean, we're talking about 85% more business coming to them because of a simple tweak, because I just asked the question. And they said, oh, I said, oh, okay, that's really interesting. If you did that, what would happen? And they said, we'd give them 85% more business.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Rang the next person, said the same thing along the same lines. Rang the next person, said the same thing. Rang the client, and they said, you better bloody well do this.
Very good. That's good. I was chatting with somebody just recently about this whole sales versus customer success versus customer service, and he came up with a wonderful analogy. He said, for me, think of IKEA. Sales is the person, and you don't necessarily get much selling going on in IKEA, right? You pick the thing up and put it on your trolley, and you kind of go through the cashier. But you purchase the thing, right? So a sale has been made. You get it home. The box says it should be assembled in 40 minutes. There you are 6 hours later, frustrated, absolutely swearing blind that they've left a nut out or something of that nature, when in reality they haven't, right? And then maybe sometime later, somebody will ring you from IKEA, from customer service, to ask what your experience was. And invariably that experience they're asking about is your experience in store. He said, so you've got sales there. You've made the sale. You've got customer service who are ringing you after the fact to ask what the sales experience was like, not the product experience. If only they could provide somebody to actually assemble the thing for you, that would be customer success, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if somebody can spend some time helping us actually deploy this thing, and such that it actually ends up doing what's written on the outside of the package, that it actually meets and ideally even exceeds our expectation because they're spending time holding our hand doing it. That's the customer success piece, right? And the moment you're getting customer success, then the likelihood that a whole experience thing comes around again, the likelihood is that they're going to do business with you again because you helped them not only get a good outcome, but you've also helped them justify the purchase in the first place. Because there'll be a bunch of people who are kind of, particularly with big dollar items, $100,000, $2 million, $10 million sales. There's going to be a bunch of people who are going, Is this working out? Is this working
Mm-hmm.
out?
Mm-hmm.
Particularly the
Mm-hmm.
CFO,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you've got an event coming up shortly, which kind of, I understand, probably covers on some of these things to some degree and probably more. Tell us a bit more about that.
Okay, so we run regular events along the lines of how to maximize your revenue and profitability in any economy, really. At the moment, we're sliding into an uncertain economy because that's what it is.
Yep.
But really, it is about figuring out, uh, what it is your clients really want, how you marry your particular expertise with the market that you're going for. Because it's all very well to have expertise, but if nobody wants it,
Yep.
you're not going to get very far. So
Yep.
how do you marry those two things up? How do you understand at a deep level what the problems and the aspirations are? And how do you choose a particular market that would fit those problems and aspirations? And then at the bottom, how do you actually make money? How do you actually convert more of these people? So it's one thing to get leads in the door, and a lot of people concentrate on getting leads in the door. Not a lot of people concentrate on conversion, but conversion is where the rubber actually hits the road and the money is made. And then how do you keep these people coming back? Because that's where the profit is made.
Yeah. Cool.
And so we run regular webinars. We've got one coming up, and I'm happy to just give you a link afterwards.
Yep.
And yeah.
Okay. Terrific. For anybody watching that would want to reach out to you and have a bit of a conversation, pick your brains a little bit more, potentially engage your services, what's the best way for them to do that?
Look, there are a couple of ways. You can go to our website, which is revealedresources.com, or just shoot me an email, which is RK is the easiest, rk@revealedresources.com, or give me a call on my mobile, 0414913334. And that's probably the best way to do it, actually, because then we can have a conversation.
Yeah, terrific. All right. I will also going to share with anybody that's watching this that Rashid, kind of like is quite prolific on LinkedIn. There's a lot of really, really good content that he's put up there, particularly in his featured section. So there's lots of kind of snippets of nuggets of gold that I would really recommend that you go and watch and soak up as well, because there's some really kind of powerful insights there. As we wrap up, I'm going to put you on the spot here because I didn't tell you I was going to ask this question, but I'm intrigued. Hoping not putting you too much on the spot. Tell me about the name Revealed Resources. What's the story behind that?
All right, the story behind that is quite interesting. It's when I did my NLP trainers training in Manchester back in the late 90s, there was a company called Hidden Resources, and I thought, oh, that's really interesting. I really like that name, but I didn't want to use the same name. So I said, well, what is NLP all about? NLP is all about helping you reveal your inner resources, because ultimately we all know what to do, but we just don't do it sometimes. And so we came up with the name Revealed Resources because we help you reveal your inner whatever it is so that you can get on with it.
Terrific. All righty. So folks, I hope you've got some benefit out of the few minutes that I've spent chatting with the engineer who became a salesperson, and who's been quite revelatory today. And yeah, feel free to reach out. We'll be dropping some links in below. This is going to go up on YouTube, and we'll do some snippets on LinkedIn. But yeah, we'll drop some links in below wherever you're seeing this to reach out to either myself or to Rashid. Thanks for joining me today, mate. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, James. Much appreciated. I enjoyed it as well.
Cool.